This is Lonesome Report. I'm Jim Mundorf in Southwest Iowa. Shad Sullivan,
At the headwaters of Bitter Creek, Archer County, North Texas.
and we talk. We get together once a week, talk about what's going on in the world and in agriculture. I was sick last week, and I feel great now. I still kind of probably sound a little weird, but feel better. Um, all right, Shad's got all kinds of stuff that's going on in the world and ag. Oh, support what we're doing. Go to lonesomelands.com. Click on subscribe. I've gotten great. I've had some subscribers. I should write down their names so I know people like to some do that, but you can or go to the store and buy some stuff. I'm getting low on t-shirts. I'm gonna have to reorder. But that's how you can support what we're doing.
Buy some merch.
Shad, what is in the news?
I don't know. There's a lot of stuff in the news. It's
You
pretty
texting
busy.
me news or articles every more than I can even keep up with.
I know. Uh,
This morning RFK's got his hearing.
yeah. How's he doing? Tell us.
I don't know that we can even talk about it because YouTube will ban us if we bring up any of the stuff that they're talking about.
Oh, that's a
I
good
saw
point.
the headline was the Babylon Bee headline said the fattest, sickest country is worried about things might change. Worried about a guy who might change things or something like that. Um, but yeah, Elizabeth Warren got all wound up. I'm not sure what that was. He told her that she's worried about him suing pharmaceutical companies, and she screamed and yelled at him that she wasn't. Um, so that's good. But yeah, I think he's doing a good job from what I've seen. I've just seen some clips, but anyway,
We're either going to embrace change, the
yeah.
right kind of constitutional change, or we're not. And I just got off the phone with a friend of mine, and we were just talking about this very thing being forked tongued. And with Trump's of course, he rescinded it today, but he had a freeze on all federal money going out to these programs. As of yesterday, he rescinded most of it today. But I told her, I said, this is going to separate the socialists from the Americans, and that's dang sure what it's going to do. But a lot of what Trump is doing, he promised he would do. It's going to hurt short term, but it is really bringing out um, the forked tongue, right? And
You
and here's what I'm going to explain on that. So all week long, we saw all of this immigration stuff really heating up, right? And it's fascinating to me because Trump has not gathered up and rounded up as many illegal aliens yet as Obama did during his administration. But the left is just throwing this wall-eyed fit, right? And I've been watching these interviews, and I got in on a couple of them. One was on The View. I got another, and I don't know how I come across it because I don't watch TV, but
you weren't
they're
watching The
talking.
View?
No, I don't watch The View, but they're talking about how awful this immigration reform is, and that who is going to, I mean, I watched even a dairy farmer talk about this. Who's going to clean our toilets? Who's going to pick our crops? And who's going to do all this stuff the Americans don't want to do? And to me, that is so degrading to the immigrant population
It's like
because
1860.
it is
Who's gonna
just,
pick the cotton? Like, I mean, that's almost what
but
I
yeah,
don't
but
want to compare
well,
the two because they are not slaves and there's nothing worse than slavery and all that. But
my
I mean, we had the same this thing around the ending of slavery. Well, how
my
are we gonna
problem
get
with
anything done?
my problem with this is these people do not they don't think that illegal aliens need to live under the law. Like me and you have to live under the law no matter what. So then they're like, well, we need this diversity, but the people that we want to have in here as diversity, they're only worthy of doing all the crap work.
Yeah,
And
I
to me,
know.
that is so fork tongued, and it is so degrading to the or the immigrants that are living here. It's like you're only worth, you have no value. And I'm just like sick of that crap. I'm
Yes.
like, gather them up, send them out, let the good ones come back in a legal way, like me and you have to follow the law, and then you can have your diversity. But the left is going crazy because he's actually doing what he said, and you can have your thought on that, but I just think the forked tongue is just Trump and his positions and his promises are bringing out the forked tongue.
Yeah,
That's
and it definitely did you watch all did you so this goes into the Brooke Rollins and USDA confirmation hearing? Did you watch all that? There was a
yes,
lot of that talk.
there was.
Who's gonna pick the crops? Who because Americans will not do these jobs, they would
Well, they
say.
will if they get hungry
They
enough.
yeah, and it's just like so that's your number one concern when we have, people who are what they call them is undocumented. So we have these people, we don't know who they are, what they've done in their lives, all that stuff. And and you're just yeah, it's crazy.
It's
But it
just
is too. That's what I think about. It's like this is the exact same argument. They're worried about their slaves. It's like who's going to do this work that
that's
other
really a good
people
way
won't
to
do?
look at it. Yeah, I
And
think
so
that's
we have this whole system, and it's almost like we've got this really messed up system where we have to bring in these people have to sneak into this country to do this work that Americans won't do. Instead of find a solution to the messed up system, we just got to leave them here and let them do the work that nobody wants to do. You know what I mean? Like let's let's figure it out. Let's develop a better system. Let's
exactly. And maybe one of the reasons behind that, Jim, is that me and you, as children and grandchildren of the Depression, like we at our house, we just do it. I mean, we've had to do me and my siblings. We've had to do all the dirty work. Gosh, my mom and her siblings, they hoed fields. And my dad, when he was tiny, they picked cotton. All of this stuff that my mom and dad are just like, you got to do what's got to be done. It don't matter. You're not above anything. And maybe that's the principle where me and you come from, is that we just do what we have to do, where other people in America who have never suffered or ever had to earn their way, or earn that piece of bread, so to speak, don't have that same, you know, uh, photo in their mind of it. I don't
yeah.
know what the difference is, because I just think what the left is doing to these immigrants, I think it's horrible, horrible.
Right.
Anyway, that's how I feel about that.
Walk beans. That's what I think of when you say it. Have you ever heard of walking beans?
No,
So in soybean country where I am, when I was a kid, and I'm probably one of the last that got in on walking beans before all the herbicides were developed and different stuff. But you would walk down a row of soybeans with a bean hook, and it was mostly buttonweeds mainly, but you would reach as far as you could. And I was the littlest in the family, so I had the fewest number of rows. So I'd have like 4 rows, where the older kids have 6, 8 rows they're covering. As you walk through the field and you see a weed, you see a sunflower, cucumber, buttonweed, and you have this hook and you hook that weed and cut it, and you cover a whole field. I
yeah,
remember the field we went to a lot was 80 acres. Bird
wow.
Green's 80. And so, and I was little, and they ended up having mercy on me. I remember because they'd be like, "All right, get an hour or two in, and then you can go play in the woods or
Well,
something."
that sounds eerily familiar to my mom. My mom was born and raised on a dryland pinto bean farm in southeast Colorado, and at one time they had 3,000 acres of dryland pinto beans. And in that country, every road, everything is on a section line. So these fields were, a normal field would be a half section to a full section, right?
Hmm.
640 acres. And my mom said when they were kids, they'd go out there and all of them got hoes. And she said we were assigned 5 rows to a mile. So I got 5 rows, and we'd hoe down and then hoe back, go in for lunch. And at lunch, she said her dad would sharpen and polish their hose, and then they'd go back out in the afternoon. And I said, "Well, Mom, how did you guys not burn up? I mean, it was so hot." And she said, "We did, but we wore big hats, and Man, those are you and her are the bean hoers.
Well, so then when I was a kid, like truckloads of Mexicans would drive around. They come up to your farm. You need any beans walked, and
Oh,
you could hire. We never did because we had kids.
you did it yourself.
Right, but I mean, and then eventually they'd come up with these rigs that would dry. You could, my uncle had one. I'm not sure if it was for spraying or you, there was like a seat and you could, a tractor could drive down the rows and then there were seats where I suppose they just cut weeds. I don't know.
Wow. Well,
Anyway,
I sure am thankful that my dad put us all on little ponies by the time we
yeah,
were 3 years old. We weren't hoeing beans. We were riding lots of miles.
yeah, that's what I was dreaming of as I was walking
Yeah.
to work. All right. What else? How come Brooke Rollins hasn't been confirmed? Like
Well, that was
they
going to be
confirm these people right away, and then
Yeah,
why
that was
isn't
going to be my question to you. And I do remember watching that confirmation hearing the other day, and they said they did say in that there was going to be a round two. Well, I was under the impression that the round two was that afternoon,
right?
but then when they left for lunch, that ended the whole day. And so I'm like, well, did because I shut it off for just a little bit, and I was like, well, did I miss round two? So I'm not sure when that is taking place and what the metrics on that are. But I guess I would need to ask you right now, if she's not confirmed yet, who is running the USDA?
Yeah, I know. Well, I saw a tweet this morning that said the Inspector General of the USDA, which I don't know who that is. I should have looked it up, but they were like walked out because they were fired and they refused to leave and they were forced to. This was on Twitter,
Really?
and so they were walked
Well,
out of the USDA. But the
I
one
did
thing
just
I was going to say that come out of that meeting I thought was interesting is only I think 11% of the workforce is showing up of the USDA. That's what they said in that
correct.
confirmation hearing. And so we have 89% are working from home or remote or whatever they call that. Of
They're not
so
working at all.
yeah, I mean it just goes to show how many I mean how many can we get rid of? It's like
So
Elon when he took
today,
over Twitter.
this morning, every federal employee got an email with an offer to buy out. I read the email, and it's really good because it says there are four pillars, and I should have wrote them down. But four pillars, and one of those pillars is you are going back to work. You are going to be working dedicated to this nation and its people, and you will not be working remotely at all. And I was like, that's pretty stern stuff. And so from the contacts in my USDA offices and all this stuff, it's pretty wild out there today that some of these offices are kind of in a panic and people are thinking about, taking the offer and going on. I think their final day, if they take the offer, will be September 20th, 2025. But it sounds like some of these offices are, especially, I'm sure if there's, anti-Trump employees, they are probably going wild. I can only assume how many lawsuits that are coming and all this stuff with this wild stuff. But I love it. I'm telling you, I'm not saying this to be a smarty. I'm saying this because I appreciate that Trump has kept his word, and I'm liking the reform. We're here because of a reason, and that's because we need reform in a lot of places. So I'm probably going to get spanked for that, but sorry.
Well, did you have any other thoughts on that hearing? Like, that's what I come away from that hearing or the confirmation hearing of hers, thinking is just when I just tuned in, it's like going back to those Senate hearings that we used to listen to about the cattle market. Like, these people are such just fake, the most fakest people. And it takes a certain kind of person to sit there and be like, oh, thank you, Senator, and go back and forth. I really appreciate everything you've done. It's just the same old,
Well,
I
she
mean, it's
was
just all day.
nice.
Oh, she did good. Yeah, that's the thing. She has to be. I'm not
Yeah.
saying she was like, I mean, it's like they're both just, I'm not saying she was
Well,
fake.
what
I'm
I
saying
got,
all these senators, because 5 years
no, I
ago we
get it.
watched this whole deal about how important the cattle industry was and how messed up the market is, and they're going to fix everything. And then they didn't do anything. But, um, and I guess that might sound silly today with what we're dealing with, but it just goes back to how insincere and the whole thing's almost like theater
No, it is
watching
almost like
them.
theater. Um, Here's what I took out from the the hearings. I thought she did a great job. I thought she was honest and upfront. I thought she said, if she didn't know, she said, I don't know. I
Yeah.
have to study that more. And there are things in the West that she does not know. She needs people from the West in there. But what I took out most of all was I'm going to get spanked for this too, but I appreciated Booker. I thought he did a good job. I thought he was, communicable. I thought he was cooperative, and I thought he said some good things. And then there was one other, and I can't remember who that was. That I thought it was a Republican that I thought he did a really good job too. But I was excited about Thune, and Thune is putting forth an MCOOL bill now, and that was super super exciting. Now, on the other hand, Thune's son-in-law has been, appointed as an undersecretary in agriculture. I don't know how that works, but certainly it raised some eyebrows from people that I talked to over the weekend. But here's the deal: she's not confirmed yet. We need to get her confirmed. I don't know who is running the USDA because just today, um, I was just reading or just talking to a friend of mine. They had some clients needing some licensing for a show, a horse show, and they've been working on it for a while. Haven't been able to get the licensing. They called up to that division of USDA, and the secretary says, "There's nobody here. There hasn't been anybody here. I can't help you. I'm sorry. I
Since
don't
like
know
the
what to do."
inauguration or what?
Huh?
Like did Vilsack just leave town?
Yeah, it sounds
He's
like
got
they're
to
all
be
here.
acting there. Is he like the? Is he still the acting ag secretary?
That's what my question is to you. Who is running the USDA? Is it since January 20th they don't have anybody? What is going on? I mean, I don't know.
Great question.
Who's is there anybody even cleaning the building? I mean, what if they have a water leak? Who's going to oversee that? I mean, it's the
Yeah, it's
smallest things you don't think about,
I
right?
know, but I mean, you go back to that thing. Everybody was worried about FSA loans, right? Is that what you were texting me last night?
Yeah.
Um, because they're putting a hold on it or whatever. But and all that's still moving. I'm sure all those offices are still fully staffed and everything. It's just DC that, right?
Yeah, all those state and local offices are fully staffed, but they can't from what I understand, they can't that you can fill out the paperwork, which nobody's in the mood to do that in the offices, but they are not funding any loans right now.
Hmm. Yeah, that's interesting. Well, I guess the people that stuck out for me was Mitch McConnell. My God, that guy needs to be
Why?
put down.
Why is he still here?
Oh, look, I mean, when you think about, and then, yeah, I mean, he can't really function hardly. He's worse than
My
Biden. People
Well,
want to
yeah,
complain about Biden. Mitch
I'm
McConnell,
just like,
his
what?
brain is shut off.
Well, I'm just like, what'd you say? What? I
Yeah.
can't understand it.
And I complain about Grassley because he's so dang old, but boy, he's sharp as a tack,
Oh,
really.
he's
I
sharp.
mean, he's
Yeah.
good, and that's hard to, I still think he's too old to be in there, and we need somebody different, but he is sharp. And he did bring up the CCC money, which is the corporate, what is it? I always forget it.
Carbon? You mean the car?
The climate smart commodity thing that
Yeah,
we talk about, all this green money, that
yeah,
comes from the CCC, which is
yes,
run by the USDA. And he
right,
said we gotta quit doing that. But Trump
yeah.
spent a ton of that too on relief for the trade issues.
I know who else did a great job was Tommy Tuberville. That dude just laid it out, and I don't think anybody in the room, Republican or Democrat, liked what he had to say. But he was like, "This has to stop. We are $45 billion in deficit here. 29 billion this year." He said this spending has to stop. I mean, he was not nice about it at all. He was nice to her, but he was like, "This is baloney," and I love that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think she did a great job. But and that's what I like too is instead of trying to BS her way through it, she's happy to say, "I'm looking forward to learning more about that." That was a pretty common answer. And
Yeah.
but the trouble is how people like her in Washington D.C. learn about stuff is from
Other
lobbyists.
bureaucats. Yeah.
Right. Farm Bureau is going to come in and NCBA, and you just got to hope she's smart enough to not to go somewhere else when she's looking for knowledge.
I think they're doing that, Jim. I think that they realize that we are at a point, to where we either go full socialist or we pull it back and we reprioritize Americanism, and that's why I think you're seeing all these spending freezes. I think that's why you're seeing these federal buyout programs of the employees, because reform is not. I don't know. I guess some reform under some presidents might just be a bite of the elephant's ear, one at a time. But as forthright as Trump is, reform to Trump is stop it now, rebuild it. And I'm kind of that type of guy too.
One
So
thing we haven't we forgot it's kind of fallen off the radar I think a little bit and JT Vig put up on Facebook this morning I saw one of them good looking Vigs that you like to talk about. Um he put up there was a message from a sale barn that said we are now charging for electronic
yeah,
identification ear tags and cattle.
yes,
We are no longer getting them from the USDA, which go back the National Cattlemen's Beef Association came out and said, we've done all this work to make sure you're not going to have to spend any extra money on EID
yeah,
tags. And now people aren't able to get them, so they're not able to pass their vet inspections because they don't have them, or they have to pay for them they have to pay for them, which they were told they wouldn't have to. I mean, it didn't take long for the whole thing to just fall apart. And I guess that
that's
goes
not money
into
in a hurry, buddy.
what do you think? What's our CAF's stance on this lawsuit deal? What are the odds of it being successful?
The EID.
Yeah.
Well, we take the stances that it's going to be very successful. We partnered with,
I mean, you personally, but I guess you
huh?
got to. I thought, yeah, I mean,
No, we
go ahead.
believe in it, and we've partnered with Representative Harriet Hagman, and she's pulling no punches, and we're getting a lot of local support. There are counties in Nebraska that have producers have taken to the commissions. The commissioners in one county yesterday, I cannot remember what county it was, started with a B. The commissioners passed a resolution and said you do not have to. It's just a resolution, so I don't know how that works, but you do. We will not acknowledge the EID RFID mandate in this county. Um, I went to a meeting in South Texas yesterday, or the night before last. Very well attended. It was an RCAF meeting. I did my presentation, The War on Beef, down there. Was super well received. These are people that are long-term generational ranchers in Texas. A lot of them come from, near the border. Some of them import, Mexican cattle, and their eyes are just being totally opened to these nefarious agendas by trade organizations. Every trade organization was talked about that night, asked questions about that night. Why are they doing this? Why is it going this way? What is happening? And I'm through the War on Beef presentation, I'm able to make it make sense for them. And boy, they come out of there, ready to save their state and their country. It was super good. They are against EID tags. So here we are with the largest trade organization in America supporting EID, pushing EID that only has 28,000 members. And it makes no sense because the other, 775,000 producers in America are probably not for it, but they don't know how to get involved or they don't know about it, period.
Right.
And
Well, to
so
go back to Texas, I had somebody tell me that a number of people he knows who are members of Texas Southwest cattle raisers, they think that they're against it. I mean, in Texas Southwest cattle raisers wanted Corbett fired for being against it. Like they're so for it. You couldn't believe how much for it they are, but they don't, there's just people who believe, well, if you're a cattle guy, you're on the right side of this and this is, they don't really know the issues or where their organizations stand on them issues.
I guess I haven't ever studied it enough to know where cattle raisers stood on it. Are they for it?
Well, I know that Corbett was the one talking about it I mean, that's what he talked about. They're
At
the ones
cattle.
that tried to cancel him. When
Yeah.
he brought out the policy and said, this is what they're going to do and this is what's going to do the industry, it was Texas Southwestern Cattle Raisers that tried to get all his sponsors to quit
Oh,
advertising.
okay. Wow.
He said, I mean, I don't think I'm saying anything he didn't say.
Yeah.
So,
I
I mean,
have
I
no.
guess I don't know their policy either, but
Well, they
that's what
stand.
he
I
said.
mean, they are a subsidiary, or not a subsidiary, but they are connected to NCBA. They're, so
Yeah.
sure their policy follows closely in line. I did meet the CEO of Independent Cattlemen of Texas. Super nice young kid, very politically savvy. Well, you interviewed him, right?
Cooper Little.
Cooper Little. Had a great conversation with him. We see eye to eye on, I mean, almost everything. And they have Independent Cattlemen's of Texas has 9,000 members. I would almost guarantee that rivals cattle raisers. I won't guarantee that, but I would say that rivals cattle raisers in Texas. I don't know how many members cattle raisers has, but 9,000 members of independent cattlemen in Texas. That's a big membership, and that could be very influential in policy for cattlemen. There's a lot of cattle originate, come in, go out of Texas, and that EID is a big, big deal.
Did you see Jack Payne wrote about a Texan this week on Facebook,
Yep,
talking
sure.
about how the ranch manager of the 4.6s is Joe Leathers, and I think he's on the traceability committee on NCBA, and he's a big guy in this cattle trace deal. So that's another
Yep.
thing where they're all for it. And he had some other things to say about some cattle that went up to Nevada. It was pretty interesting. If you look up Jack
My,
Payne's
my dad
Facebook
would
post.
call that an interesting conflict.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Joe Leathers was the guy who in 2011 said, was promoting the EID experience across America. And he says, we can wave a wand and know how many cattle you have on your ranch. Well, yeah, that's the problem. It's
Right.
nobody's damn business, right?
Yeah, because the head guy of Cattle Trace is a beef packer, has a major ownership stake, and when the beef packers can waive, I mean, I know there's all these reports where they're supposed to know how many cattle there are anyway, but it's it's different when they have that kind of control. You got much else?
I've had, I believe that with Trump's inauguration, that the ideologues or yeah, the ideologues are coming out faster, harder, and more furious. We have land issues going on like crazy. I'm the private property rights chair at RCAF USA, as you well know. And this week alone, in 2 days, I had calls from Southeast Arizona concerning wolves, Southwest New Mexico concerning wolves, Southern New Mexico concerning the Forest Service threatening to impound cattle, Colorado with the wolf issue and just the lack of transparency in that wolf issue. Um, we have the Forest Service in the mod case in South Dakota. We are calling on Brooke Rollins and President Trump and the DOJ to get that done and over with and drop all charges against the mods. They are such a nice, nice family. And the ideologues are coming against them so hard in on social media, and they're just making these lies up.
They're
Obviously, they
coming
don't.
against that mod family?
Oh man, I'm telling you, the environmental
Who
movement. They are against them, and they just make all kinds of stuff up. That's not true, and we know it's not true.
Are there
So,
groups or who is it? Just
oh, it's
random?
individuals mostly, and groups, obviously. The guy that started all of this problem has been relocated like a wolf, been relocated somewhere else. Um, my we don't really know for sure, but I think I know where he went. He's the one that started this whole mess with the Mod family.
Who
Uh,
belongs in prison?
he belongs in prison. Uh,
But
so
Harriet
there's a lot of
Hageman,
land issues. There's another. So the National Interstate Corridor Transmission Line, the people of Kansas and Oklahoma got that stopped, and then right as soon as they got it stopped, another one popped up, eastern Colorado down to Ruidoso, New Mexico. These are corridors that are 5 to 15 miles wide, 250 miles long. It's just crazy. So all this property rights issues, and we're not even talking about the issues of the over on the western part of Colorado with the national parks, the Dolores Monument, all of that. I mean, it's just crazy how fast they're coming. I think they know their time is short and that all this will be rolled back, but it's sure concerning, and it's sure got a lot of landowners, owners, ranchers upset at the whole system, really.
you were talking about ideologues. So you were on a podcast a while back. Wealthy Cowboy. What's that guy's name? I just know him as
Crockett,
Wealthy
Crockett,
Cowboy.
Crockett Crothers. He's a young man that,
Crockett Carruthers. Boy, he
yeah,
sounds
it sounds Texan, don't it?
like a bareback rider or something.
I think he's a
Um,
calf roper.
oh
Really,
yeah.
yeah, really nice young kid. Really,
But
really sad.
he had a really interesting question I heard him ask you, which is who is the cattleman's biggest enemy? And I
Mm-hmm.
thought about it a lot since then. Because you said the ideologues, but if you look at like if you think of and that I suppose that was probably sprung on you, or did you know that was coming?
Oh, yeah. Oh, all the questions. I've never had questions sent to me ever before.
Yeah. Yeah. And so you were talking about, and I suppose it's all those people that you just mentioned. But what I always think of as the cattleman's biggest enemy, like if you had to pick a group, PETA, Humane Society, I'm sure there's all these groups, property rights, you'd probably say Nature Conservancy. There's all these groups that are obvious, you know, kind of enemies of the cattlemen. But I've always thought, after hearing that question, I always thought, to me, there's no question. It's the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. And I think
Well,
a lot of people will push back on that. But I think the most dangerous enemy is the one who pretends to be your friend and has a lot of people convinced to be your friend and we're working for you, and they get those guys behind them and go down to convention and buy them drinks and convince them they're great people. But in the end, I mean, that's why they're the most dangerous is because they have actual cattle. Like they're going to go to Brooke Rollins and be like, we're the voice of the cattlemen. And who's to say she's not going to believe them?
well,
Um,
and the term ideologue comes in many different forms. And if you don't think there's ideologues in this industry, you're wrong. There are. And an ideologue can be easily influenced because they have no natural character, no backbone. They go where the wind blows. And what an ideologue does is um, they really capitulate to the dollar, right?
well, here's,
If there's not incentive, why be one?
yeah.
And so,
And like what you said, they go where the wind blows. And that goes back to one thing I think about. I've talked about this before, but last year it came out, I think it was $500 million. So $500 million was going to be spent on creating lab meat for the military. And NCBA, Tri-State, obviously, they're a good publication, but they go to the National Cattlemen's Beef Association because they are the cattlemen's office in DC, And they got a quote from Ethan Lane, and he says, "Oh, it's so outrageous. I don't know how they could do this. It's so horrible." And for me, so this is where I'm coming from because I research all this stuff and I know exactly where it's coming from. And Ethan Lane knows exactly where it's coming from because he's friends with the people. The North American Meat Institute is the biggest lobbyist that I know of for the lab meat industry. They work hand in hand with National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Your checkoff dollars go to North American Meat Institute, some of them, and they are the main lobbyists for the four beef packers. And so when this kind of stuff goes through in DC and NCBA says, "Oh, we have no idea. It's so outrageous. We can't stand any of it." They're giving money to them. They're best friends with them. They're best friends with the lobbyists that make that happen. The biggest and it's really complicated too because this outfit that's getting the 500 million, well, they're not a manufacturer of lab meat. They partner with other companies that are manufacturers of lab meat. Well, the biggest, most well-known one is called Upside Foods. Upside Foods is owned by Bill Gates, or is invested in by Bill Gates, Tyson Foods, and Cargill, I believe. And that's why North American Meat Institute is involved because the two biggest American beef packers are invested in it. And so then they get their lobbyists to go to DC and get $500 million of funding for fake lab meat. And that's just an example of how the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, and people will hear that and they don't know about all this stuff. So if they hear me saying they're the biggest enemy of the cattlemen, but it goes back to that EID stuff too. They tried to slide that policy in without anybody paying any attention. And Corbett and other people and all these sale barn guys got wind of it. And the word spread, and then they were pissed. And then they went and got their money for the EID tags anyway. Um, and what I'd really love to see, they got their convention coming up. Anybody going to National Cattlemen's Beef Association, I would urge you to go to them and ask them how they're doing on their goal for climate neutrality or carbon neutrality. Their net zero goal that they thought was so great a couple years ago, their top priority was going to be becoming carbon neutral, and all the cattle industry was committing to being carbon neutral. How's that going this year? We're going to talk about that this year at the NCBA convention. Now that all that funding's getting cut and the truth has really come out about that deal. You're laughing. I got a little wound up.
These are really good questions.
Yeah.
Superb questions.
And I mean, you talk about blowing with the wind. What was that? 2020, 2021, I think. They came out and said their top priority of the cattle industry is climate neutrality. And then their speaker last year has done research talking about the damage that cattle have on the
Miles out, Oxford University.
That's the cattleman's number one enemy. Sorry. More than PETA, more than Humane Society. I mean, they're the biggest problem of the cattle.
But it's all interwoven, and they're all interwoven together because it's all about the money, right? And I can't argue with you. That is, as far as an enemy to independent production, it absolutely is. What I try, at the end of the day, all of these issues that I've been fighting for and you've been fighting for, I try to make people realize that the big picture is the global cabal. That's where it is. Because, one thing you just said, I remembered 10 or 12 years ago at the NCBA convention when a committee signed or voted to approve sustainable development in the industry. And 15 people were in that committee meeting. And one of them I know very well. And when they come out, that individual voted against it. And when they come out, those people who voted for it said, well, what exactly are we voting on? Right. Mm-hmm. So that's the power of the dollar right there, and the example of incremental infiltration. But at the very top of this all is the global cabal, and their goal is anyway, incrementally, slowly, however that has to be done, is to control the land is at the very bottom. That is the key to understanding all of this. It's about who controls the land and the natural resources. And these people are just being used as puppets, right? Because they don't have, should I say, backbone. They don't have a sturdy foundation, a strong foundation of who they are, what we do as Americans to feed the people, feed our families, our communities, our states, and they don't care because it's all about. At the end of the day, it's all about their job, what the cash that goes in their pocket, not understanding that down the line none of that matters because it's all going to be destroyed anyway.
Yeah.
Uh, and so that is the ideology that I speak of. I mean, you can have ideologues in the beef and cattle industry. You have environmental ideologues. You have ideologues in your banking system. You know, it is it can be anything, buddy.
Yeah, and what makes them so dangerous, I've talked about it in different presentations and stuff, but I had an interaction on Twitter where a girl was like, I used to think like you. And then I was in DC and I went to their office and I sat there for 2 hours and they talked to me. And you know what? I they're good people and I was wrong. And, and it's kind of like you you don't get it. Like that's their job. They got you in their office and they changed your mind and they told you what you wanted to hear and they convinced you that and that's where their real danger is. It's kind of like old Eve going back to Adam and being like,
Yeah,
that snake?
absolutely.
You know that snake? He's all right guy.
Yep,
You
that's
know?
exactly what this is. It's the great deceiver, right? That's it. Oh man, they have slick tongues, right?
Yeah.
And they can make you believe anything. And if you're not rooted in a foundation of independence and liberty and freedom, you will go any direction. That's
Right.
just all there is to it. Because for me, I want to make a lot of money. I want to be a rich man. My wife says, it'll never happen to us, Shad. And I'm fine with that because at the end of the day, it's not about the money. I mean, it's about leaving an inheritance to our children. And that inheritance is not money, it's liberty and freedom and it's legacy. And man, you know, that can easily be bought off, Jim,
Right.
very easily.
And you
Money,
see it when you
where there's, yeah,
I mean, I'm trying to make Lonesome Lands a media company. And it's easy. It would if you did what I've said it before. I'm crazy the way I'm doing it because you want to come in and you want to say good things about all the big corporations and you want beef checkoff money and you want the federal government money and you want all of that stuff that these big, but I want Lonesome Lands based on truth and agriculture.
amen,
And so I think that's what it goes
amen,
back
brother.
to.
That's the best I've heard all day. I want it based on truth.
Yeah. And when you
Yeah,
get
so
in,
I was just looking at this. Um, it's funny how the CBB, or yeah, the Cattleman's Beef Board, um, really authorized this money because here's your top for
what money?
2020, huh?
What money?
The beef checkoff. So
Oh,
here's your top people that got it. American Farm Bureau Foundation for Agriculture, 800,000. Cattlemen's Beef Board, 1.8 million. Foundation for Meat and Poultry Research and Education, 500,000. Meat Import Council of America Northeast Beef Promotion Initiative, 900,000. Cattlemen's Beef National Cattlemen's Beef Association. Here you go. You ready for this number? NCBA, $25,405,000.
and I
National.
don't, I don't think that's all of it because I don't think that
No,
includes.
listen. Hold on. Hold on.
Sorry.
I got more. National Institute for Animal Agriculture, 60 grand. North American Meat Institute, 330 million. United States Meat Export Federation, 8.1 million. But now listen, if you break it out in the budget component, you have all of these organizations. That's probably what they received in the cash portion of it. But their budgets were also awarded. Here's here's the budget for promotion programs: 9.27 million, 8.3 million for research, 7.6 million for consumer information programs. That's advertising. 2.8 million for industry information programs. That's pamphlets that should be going to schools. 8.1 million for foreign marketing and education, 1.8 million for producer communications. So that tells me that that is all broke down. Let's say NCBA or another organization has all sorts of platforms: an education platform, research platform, promotion platform. So they all get more on top of that initial money. So
Yeah, it's a money laundering scheme
yeah,
because they can move it every different which way and pay themselves to put on this convention and yeah, which I'm
definitely.
just now looking up. It always blows my mind that people go to this convention. You can go for the education package, 1,375 dollars to go to this
Okay, so why
convention.
are we giving them $42 million if they're going to charge $1,300 to go to their convention?
CattleCon registration. Okay, so this includes less stuff, I guess. A member, $1,000. Non-member, $1,245. Just blows my mind. People go down there and spend $1,000 just to go to this convention for one day. If you're just showing up for one day, member $425 and non-member 450. Well, that depends on the day. Non-member 625 on Thursday. This is so stupid. Just to go to the trade show costs $125 on the cheapest day. $300 for multiple day, just the trade show. I don't know, man. I suppose they think they see it as a donation to a good organization. There's still people that think that.
Well, I mean, let's look at all these sponsors.
Yeah, I
Arrow
know.
Equip,
Yeah, how much money are they making on that deal? They talk about I talked to somebody who works for one of the magazines and they said that the most profitable thing that they do are these shows, ag shows. So, it's a big business, which I don't mind, but it's just I mind that one.
this Culver's, Drovers, Envy, Feedlot, High Plains Journal, Merck. I mean, they just going on and on and on.
Yeah, I mean, and that's the thing. They're high, they have a lot of staff. They've got people that sell stuff. You can't look at their social media without seeing an ad.
This is
One thing I wanted to talk about,
yes,
January 28th, I believe was the day,
that was yesterday.
2024
Oh,
was, I believe, the worst day of the worst wildfire in the history last year, right?
in Texas,
In the Panhandle. Yes, last year. You know why I remember that day? And I didn't want to politicize it last year because there was bad things going on. Because Shad Sullivan sat in his pickup and talked about how horrible it was and how you can donate hay and how people need to get behind, we got to gather around and support these ranchers who are losing everything. And then if you go to the National Cattlemen's Beef Association on January 28th, I believe, last year, you know what you'll see?
what?
Cattlemen Fly United. That was all they put up. It was an ad for United Airlines so you could fly into DC and they can use you for a prop and take you around to your politicians and say we're the voice of the cattlemen and this guy's, but it was an ad for United Airlines. The worst day of the worst wildfire in Texas history. That's how they operate. That's the enemy of the
I
cattlemen.
would like, if speaking of that fire, man, that hurt a lot of people. Hurt a lot of country.
Have you talked to anybody
I
lately?
keep it.
Like see how they're doing?
No, no. I mean, not lately. I keep it every once in a while. I text with a couple of people out there. They're tough and they're not gonna ask for help. But I'm gonna tell you, if you understood the small donations from small producers that helped with that, and listen, there was great donations from huge people, like mega donations. But true, I know one guy who donated 6,000 bales of hay, and nobody knew who he was. Super guy, doesn't want recognized, had been through it before himself, and he said they helped me when I needed help. I'm going to help them because I was like 6,000 bales. Are you kidding me? I mean, that's your whole season. And he
Yeah.
said,
How do you come up with?
he's like, I have to do it, Shad, because he's a hay guy, right? And I said, I
Mhm.
understand. But even with him, I do, I donated some hay too. And there was these young kids that took off from work and came and got these loads of hay here at my place and hauled them up there for nothing. For nothing. I mean, just the simple. There's guys out in the Southwest Panhandle that stopped working for a month to help these people. I mean, these are the unrecognized heroes. I mean, they are superheroes because my dad always said, "Pick that penny up, boy. A penny earned is a penny gained." It all adds up, and that was the true gift of the fire was how Texans and ranchers and agriculture came together to help those producers.
Right
I
on.
wrote, I wrote a really good article called "Burning Bunnies."
Yeah.
Um,
Available. You can find
yeah,
it on Lonesome
I
Man.
think you published that.
Yeah.
It's a good fire, or it
Yeah.
was a good deal.
Yeah. That's a nice little ray of positivity to wrap things up, right? Best industry in the world.
Yeah, just like what else would we do? I can't
And
imagine
that's
living
why
another way. Huh?
that's why you get wound up about people who take advantage and aren't we see them as, you know, the enemy because we want to protect the whole deal. Keep that going.
Don't be an ideologue.
Right on. Like, subscribe, share the video. Go to lonesomelands.com, click subscribe, help us out. See you next week, possibly in person. Possibly me and Shad on one screen next week.
We've got to do that.
Adios.